Hi, my name is Dan Dulac and welcome back to my channel where I am building a 5.2 liter V10 powered Ultima Evolution convertible. This is episode number 45. If you missed any of the previous 44 episodes, be sure to go back into my channel and check those out. We have made a ton of progress on this very bespoke Ultima build. Now, as you've seen, it's been a minute since my last video. I've been really busy with work, a lot of travel with work, been traveling on some personal time with the family. And as you saw in the opening, hit the Canadian Formula One race, which was awesome. It's actually my second race up there. But now I am back in the garage. I've done a fair bit of work actually over the last 2 to 3 months, just in really small bite-sized chunks, and have been really waiting to assemble enough footage so I could put this video together for you. So we've got a lot to update you on this episode, so without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is build the center console between the seats for the Ultima. And what you see here is I modeled the chassis, the e-brake, so that I could model the center console around it. With the center console in place, that is the basic layout of the center console. I've got 2 big cup holders that you can see there, plus the square cutout for a little storage bin as well. Next up, what we needed to do was slice this up, cut this into 2 pieces so that I could get this on the new 3D printer I have. I actually picked up an Elegoo Neptune 3 Max 3D printer with a huge build volume, so that allows me to print this fairly large item in 2 pieces. So let's move over and get this thing 3D printed. Alright guys, here I am working on the center console. As you saw, I 3D printed the console here in 3 pieces on my new Elegoo Neptune 3 Max printer. But anyways, as you can see here, I've got this thing all glued together, and now I'm just doing a little bit of body work on it just to fill the seams where I did glue. Here's one seam, here's the other seam, just covering that up. This is all gonna get epoxied. Till the epoxy's tacky, then we're gonna do a layer of 2x2 carbon fiber, and then we'll give the same treatment, a couple coats of epoxy, buff and polish, then we'll do a clear coat on top, and that will finish this out. As you can see here, I've got some holes here. I've got a couple of cup holders. I just picked these up off Amazon, I think. Standard size cup holders, and then these will slide right in there. Once it's all carbon fiber skinned, these will slide right in there. I wanted extra big cup holders for my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Need to do that. Cannot go without the Dunkin' coffee run. And then this is just a cell phone holder, attach or glue into there. And I've got actually a USB connector for charging phones. Couple of outlets. I might actually mount that, drill a hole in here or in the bottom and mount this in there so it's easy to charge a couple of phones. But anyways, that's where we're at. Again, just working on getting this thing covered. I've test fitted it in the car a bunch of times, and I think we're pretty much good to go there. Had to cut a hole for the harness passover that passes through the rear bulkhead, or by the rear bulkhead there. So that'll work. And then I'm gonna make these mounts hidden. I'm actually gonna do a mount through the cup holder into the floor, and then I'm also gonna do a mount, hidden mount back here that'll actually come in to the side where the seatbelt mounts, the inward seatbelt mounts go. So that'll be the second mount. So just 2 mounts there should be enough to hold this thing. Anyway, that's the latest. Let's keep going on this. We'll get this, this thing ready for some carbon layup and get after it. laminating epoxy is exothermic, and here is a perfect visual of that. Check out the steam coming off this extra epoxy I have. I don't have very much, just a little bit, but it's enough in there to cause a runaway exothermic reaction. It's actually too hot to touch, yowza. That might melt through, I have to watch it, but this is actually not a good thing when you have a bunch of leftover epoxy. It could start a fire, and that's not a lot of leftover. Science, love it. All right, I have got the first coat of epoxy on here, and it came out okay. I concentrated on the top here because this is gonna be the most visible. As you saw, it is pretty tricky laying this down because that surface was tacky. So as soon as you lay this dry carbon down, it wants to stick and hold, and if you try to pull it up, you'll create a run in the fabric. So it is very tricky to do. I think I pulled it off here. I think that's gonna work. So we're gonna let this get to B stage. I'll do another coat on this of epoxy, let it dry overnight. Then we'll do some trimming, get all these edges trimmed. Then we'll lay down a couple of more coats. Then I'm ultimately gonna clear coat this, just like I did with the airbox lids. Anyways, I'm pretty happy with this. Let's keep it going. We have got a critically important test fit to do here with the cup holder. So let's put this in. Now that fits, but here's the critical part. Yes, eureka. All right, after a lot of sanding with 220, 320, then 400, this thing is ready to go. I concentrated mostly on the top sides and then just around the corners here, because this is gonna be the stuff, call it from here forward, that will be seen top and side, but everything else from about this point back on the sides is gonna be hidden by the seats. So I don't have to get this laser smooth on the sides, but certainly on the top, I really focused on because that's going to be the most visible. So it came out great. Now we are ready for clear coat. I'm going to use this stuff, Rattle Can 2K Clear. I had really good luck with this on the air boxes, so I'm going to do it the same on the center console here. So I'm going to get myself my little paint booth set up outside. We're going to give this stuff a spray. So let's get to it. I've got 3 or 4 coats of clear on this, and a little bit of an issue. I've got some clouding going on here on the coat. I don't know if that's just continuing into off gas, I hope, or maybe I can, if it doesn't off gas and clear up, maybe polish that out. I don't know, that's weird. There is a couple cloudy spots too. The rest of it seems okay. I did put it on a little heavy here, so I'm hoping it's just it'll fade once it dries and off gases, but anyway, too late to turn back now. Let's give this time to dry and see how it turns out. All right, it's been a couple hours later and voila, no more clouding. So yeah, I put it on a little too thick and just needed some extra time to off gas and we're good to go. I got a little piece of dirt right there. So I'm gonna wet sand this top side, really just the visible sides, wet sand and polish, and we'll get this thing wrapped up and in the car. So another big project, almost done. We've got this wet sanded with 1000 grit, then 1500 grit, and I'm definitely pleased with these top side surfaces. You can see where it's completely dull, that is flat. And then there's a few shiny spots. I would have to go a little bit lower to get those out, but I think that's gonna be just fine. And you can see too, it's not completely flat along the sides. Again, some shiny spots. So I could keep going, but I'm not gonna give in again. This is all gonna be hidden by the seats. Really the visible spots will be these top surfaces here and then the side surfaces on both sides. So I made extra sure that I sanded this as smooth as possible, and it is silky smooth. So next up, we're gonna polish this and bring the shine back, and this thing will be ready to go back in the car. All right, this thing is pretty much done. All I've got to do is work up some mounting locations where I'm going to mount it inside the car. As you can see, I put the cup holders in, both front and back, and then just a little case. I imagine cell phones are going to go in there, and then I have this cell phone USB charger there, and I'm thinking I'll drill a hole right here, put it in there, and then nice convenient spot for cell phones. So you may be wondering too, why I designed this flat surface. So I had some method to my madness here. My Motec rotary dial keypad here is gonna fit right there on the flat spot. So I just gotta drill 3 holes and then I'll be able to mount that there, and that'll be a perfect spot for that. All in all, came out pretty good. I'm just gonna set this in the car so you can see what it looks like, and then we need to get this thing mounted up. And to finish up that center console, my sister made me one of these, made out of Alcantara. This is just a little boot for the e-brake to match the rest of the interior. So nice little Alcantara piece. So this goes in here just like that. Very nice. That is a nice little touch. The stitching matches the orange deviated stitching on the seats and on the dash, so that came out really nice. Thanks, sis, appreciate it. Well, here's one of the other projects I've been working on in the meantime over the last couple of months. I picked myself up one of these Langmuir MR1 gantry CNC machines. So this thing is pretty sweet. It is gonna take my game up another notch as it relates to machining my own custom parts and so forth. This you have to assemble. You can buy it pre-assembled, which is to the tune of maybe $2,000 more, but I like assembling things, clearly, so I picked up this kit. It arrived on truck freight, dropped off at my garage door in one big box, and basically what you do is the base of this has to be filled with concrete. So this is about 6 inches of solid concrete, and then with epoxy coat over it. You can see I've got some chips everywhere because I've been doing some test cuts here, but assembly required. I modified the legs a little bit so I could slide this cobalt tool chest underneath. So I've got all my tools, machine tools, 1, 2, 3 blocks, Bluetooth remote control so I can control it, touch probe here. So basically all the bits and pieces I need. And you can see here, I've got some test pieces I've already done. And here's a test block. This square here on top is exactly 1 inch square in size. So it came out pretty good. Nice, smooth, crisp surfaces. So fiberglass windows on the side. I've got a cool mist system in here. So there's the cool mist. And it does have corner drains on all 4 corners, so I could do flood coolant as well if I wanted to, but I'm just gonna start with mist for now based on the projects I'm doing. It's a pretty sweet little unit. It's been fun to play with, and I've already got some ideas for this. So stay tuned for that, I'm pretty excited. All right, based on some feedback from you guys, great feedback by the way, thank you. I changed the layout of the gauge bezel. This is the original that I showed in episode 44, and you can see it's about 1 inch taller than the one on the right. So I reprinted a different version that had the display sit about 1 inch lower. The whole cowl sits about 1 inch lower on the dashboard. And I think it's an actual better look. This one, the original, was a little bit too tall, and I definitely agree with you guys. After looking at it, and certainly after printing a shorter design and putting it on the dash, I realized, yeah, the one on the left was a little bit too tall. So the whole thing, you can see kind of the bottom here, the difference. So the screen is lower by about 1 inch on the dash. So this is all sanded. This is carbon fiber skin. So I decided to print a second version that is carbon fiber skin. Again, based on some feedback from many of you, I decided what the heck, I'll give it a shot. So while my sister was sewing up the Alcantara version of this, I printed a new one, skinned it. This is ready for clear coat. and we're gonna be able to compare and contrast the two designs when we put them in the car. But I'm definitely pleased with the shorter design here, lower profile on the dash. It definitely, I think, blends in the dash a little bit better. It doesn't stick out as much. So pretty happy with that. We'll see what this looks like in the car. We have got a nice fresh polish on this. Got all the orange peel out of it. Let's put in the display. Make sure it still fits. Yes. Affirmative click. All right. There it is. Nice. Real nice. Let's go put it on the car. Here's the driver's head position, and you can see the lower left portion of that screen is hidden a little bit by the steering wheel there, and that was the risk of lowering that screen about an inch, but I think it's well worth the compromise. The profile of that looks nice. That inch lower bezel makes a whole difference in the world, so pretty happy with that, how that turned out. All right guys, now let me show you option number 2. So again, this is the same version of the carbon skinned that I just put on, low profile, inch lower than the original. So the exact same thing. Key difference being my sister finished up the Alcantara covering for this. So I'm gonna have to glue this on, but it fits on somewhat like a boot covering. I'm gonna have to apply a little bit of foam here and there, and then kind of pull and stretch this tight and glue it down around underneath. So that's going to be a little bit of a project, a little bit tricky. I'm going to need like 5 more hands to help me do this, but that is going to be sweet. The stitching is incredible. Orange, it matches the contrast stitching that's in the car on the seats, on the e-brake boot. So very cool. And this is exactly what I wanted to ask you guys that I mentioned in the beginning. Once I get this glued up, we'll do a compare and contrast of the carbon version and take a vote and see what you guys like better. The Alcantara to match the seats or the carbon fiber to match the center console. So the good news is I've got options, pretty easy to interchange these things, and away we go. So big shout out to my sister. Thanks so much for making this. This is awesome, and I cannot wait to get this glued up. All right guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. I can't wait to get this glued up. That we'll cover in the next episode. I'll get that new bezel glued up, and we'll do some direct side-by-side comparisons. I'll set out a poll, see what you guys think as far as which version, the carbon fiber or the Alcantara. Can't wait, we're making real progress now. There is nothing standing in my way of getting this dashboard finished up. Gonna lay some carpet, make sure all the wiring is tidy, and we're gonna start drilling some more holes to put some additional switches and so forth in the dash. So you'll have to tune into the next one for that. We'll see you next time.